New Year's Eve 2021, and I'm down in West Sussex, not far from Horsham, and I'm on the Knepp Estate, which is a wildland estate. Now, until 2000, I think it was, this was a regular agricultural farm growing crops, but the soil around here is the willed clay, which is not the best for growing crops, and I think they were struggling to make the farm profitable, so they decided basically to let the land grow wild, or go wild. So they, fundamentally they decided not to do anything to the land, to let it just take its own way. They obviously did a bit of studying and stuff like that, I guess, and I think the theory is, well, the common belief I think is that Britain back in time was all woodland, and I've heard a few people say that back in the Middle Ages a squirrel could travel from the south coast to Scotland without touching the ground because it could go from one tree to another. But these people, and I guess there must be other people who believe that there were areas of grasslands, prairie lands, I suppose you call it, stuff like that, in the country as well, and that on these things animals graze like aurochs and what would have been the predecessors of horses today, so on and so forth. So they decided to give it a go. So they let land grow wild. They've introduced longhorn cattle. I don't know if you can see them. There's a few down there. Maybe we'll find a few more a bit later on. I think they got Dartmoor ponies on here, and there's wild pigs and deer, and they just let them roam free round about. They obviously have to control their breeding a little bit, otherwise they'd overtake the place. But fundamentally, they've let the land go back to its natural state, and since they've done that, they've just seen the wildlife flourish, and butterflies, birds, all sorts of things that were becoming rare have returned here, and it's become quite famous for its wildlife conservation and introduction. I got to hear about it from reading the book, I think it's Wilding, and it was a fascinating read, so I definitely recommend it. Anyway, there are public footpaths through the land, and there's routes that you can follow, and I'm going to follow one of those routes today and just have a look. I've been wanting to come down ever since I read the book, so I feel pretty excited to be here, to be honest. There's quite a few people about, not here, over there, people walking around, so I guess it must be fairly popular. You can come camping here, and they do safaris, I think, sort of searching out wildlife. But today, yeah, it's just a typical English winter's day on Exmoor. Stick to the public footpaths so that you don't walk in amongst the animals, disturb the wildlife, or even, I guess, all this, upset the biodiversity, is it? But they've marked out on the public footpaths, there is about 3 or 4 different routes that you can follow, and they're all got different coloured markings. I think the longest one's the red route, which is the route that I'm aiming to follow at the moment. I guess you can see on there that there's just loads of patches of bramble everywhere, and then I think all the dead plants are ragwort. I I've had lots of ragwort grow. All part of, I goes the natural, well, nature taking over. I think I read in the book somewhere that they said, oh, come to a junction now and I can't see any red, green, blue or yellow markers. If in doubt, go straight on. There's some more longhorn cattle over there. Hopefully get to see something closer up. Oh, look at that. See? There we are. Yeah, I think, as I was saying, I think they said in the book that, well, the countryside as we know it today and what we see today, a lot of the time, is the product of the war. So, during the war, we needed to feed ourselves. So a lot of wild countryside land got ploughed up and used to grow wheat of some form or another. And so we're pretty used now to driving through fields and fields of wheat and that. But before that, a lot more of the land looked a lot more like this, a lot more wild. And I think in the book I read, they said, you know, that some of the folk that were around sort of during or before the war have walked through this place and said, yeah, this is what it looked like, this is what it was like when I was a child. Had this kind of restoration. Oh, it's found a massive button. So I guess it's interesting seeing really that roll back in history, roll back in time. There's nice woodland this side, look. There are lots of areas where the ground's all dug up like this. I would guess it's probably the work of pigs, but I don't know, maybe something else. Well, I would imagine it's animals rather than humans. If all that out there is ragwort, that'd be amazing. Field of yellow in the spring, summer, whenever ragwort blossoms. Well, there's some more cattle. I've just seen a couple of red deer, but they were so thick in the woods I couldn't really film them. It's a really shame. They were beautiful though. This is Shipley village, which I think is more or less in the middle of the estate. There's not much to it. There's a church behind there and that amazing windmill. That's part of it. I think that's the windmill they used in the Jonathan Creek series. I think that's what I read. I thought I'd lost the red arrows, but I think there's one just up there ahead. So that's good. I'm still on track. Well, coming back into the closure. Deer cull in progress. Ooh. So, got there. It's wonderfully peaceful all around here. Fantastic. And disappointing bit so far, like I say, not seen much of the wildlife. just the backside of a couple of deer and more cattle over there. But I suppose if it is wildlife, it's learnt to stay out the way of human beings. But I'm still hopeful. Might get to see something. Look at these oak trees. Magnificent. This must be the manor house where the I don't know what they are. I don't know if they got titles or not. I guess it's where they live. Whatever they are. It's not the original dwelling of the residents of the estate. It was a castle, which there's only ruins of, but we'll go to them a bit later. It's just an imitation castle now. Impressive enough though, isn't it? This is an old mill pond, or hammer pond, originally built in the 16th century for smelting iron, which was a big industry in Sussex back in those days. So, this is Knepp Castle in all its remaining glory. Right next to the A24, unfortunately. This is the River Ada, which I think is the river that runs down past Arundel. I think. We're nearly finished the walk now. This part's all been more sort of like fields, meadows. Doesn't look quite so wild. It's got the lovely A24 running along beside it. I was really surprised not seeing anything. Horses, not even cattle around this bit. There we are, nearly got to the end, and there's a few fallow deer. Not quite as majestic as what the red deer were, but there we are. Sorry my zoom's not that brilliant. Well, that's it, the end of my walk. Very peaceful. It is definitely wild, but yeah, it's a bit disappointing on the old wildlife scene. There you go. Maybe I'll come back in spring and see what it's like then. It might be a bit more